Fire Radio.
Thank you all for being here this morning. It's a real honor to be asked to come down and speak with you this morning. I won't put you to sleep, I promise. Couple things real quick, exciting to hear. I was just sitting in the back. Any program, Fire 1 and 2, where you're putting students on fire trucks and making them go to fires on the training grounds is a win in my book. Too many training programs are so disjointed. Too many training programs go through the minutia of the day-to-day, and they're not putting firemen on fire trucks and going to fires. So kudos to you guys at the State Academy here to be putting your firefighter 1 and 2 students in fire trucks going to fires. I think that's a win, an absolute win. This morning, this program is called Bridging the Gap. It's all about tradition and culture in the fire service. I'm going to hit on some words that I think are important. It's going to be a conversation about the generational gap, the disconnect, the miscommunication between young and old. I don't know if there's any other programs like this one out there. This doesn't go into strategy and tactics. I'm not going to tell you how to put out fires. I'm going to tell you how to put out fires in your firehouse. I'm going to talk about the stuff that actually bogs us down as organizations. We all love going to fires. It's what we do. We signed up for it. Nobody was forced to be here. And so because of that, why do we have failing cultures? Why do we have fire departments that are crumbling from the inside out? The delivery of services matters, but we got to keep our people there. I saw before one of the slides that you guys were talking about, one of the instructors here is in charge of recruitment and retention. I truly, truly believe recruitment is one topic, retention is another. We focus so much on recruitment that we don't give retention enough time. We already got the people in the door. Why are we losing them? Why are they falling out of love with the fire service? If we can get people in our doors, why aren't we giving them every single tool to succeed? Why do we have failing cultures? Why do we have people looking to get out? Why do we have people falling out of love with it? It's because the system and the culture is broken. It's an important part of the message. Let's work on retention. Let's talk about keeping our people, giving our people the tools they need to succeed. That's how we build strong fire companies. I start every single one of my programs or keynotes that I do with this slide, the Aloha slide. Last year, I had the privilege to go to Maui and document the fires that happened in Lahaina in 2023, August 8th. I went there and I interviewed 22 people in 5 days about the fires that occurred, the firestorm that destroyed Old Town Lahaina. I got to meet with engine companies that almost lost their lives. I met with firefighters that were doing CPR on their captain in zero visibility in the middle of a neighborhood. Talked to government officials, people that lost their homes, and everyone in between. And the one thing that came across the whole time I was there was the Hawaiian spirit, the culture, the aloha, the importance of what their community actually means to them. And I drew a lot of parallels with it. As I sat down with a lot of firefighters on the island and we chatted, they were grateful for their lives. They were torn apart that their old town was destroyed and that the rebuilding was going to take place, and they didn't know how to feel about that. But the one thing, the one very thing that stood out to me was their ability for love and compassion and empathy for their own people. In Hawaii, they have a saying, what is up, what is down, is down. I'd try to say it in Hawaiian, but I would butcher it, so I never do. But it's a beautiful thing because they talk about order. They talk about respect. The top to the bottom, from the governor to the dishwasher and everybody in between has a mutual respect for one another. No one is better than anyone else in their culture. And there is a place in order. What is up, what is down, is down. It's an important way, and when you parallel that to the fire service, that's all I took away from that, was that there's an order, there's a mutual respect, there's a way in which we need to operate. And across the board, from the chief to the probie and everybody in between, there needs to be order and mutual respect. That is how we operate. This event for me was life-changing. I took my producer with me, I took my 2 youngest daughters and my wife with me, and we spent, I think, 7 days on the island of Maui. Not only is it the most magical place that I've ever been, but the culture and the people there left an indelible mark on me that I'll never forget. And so I'm grateful for National Fire Radio and what it's been able to do for me, especially that trip, to document what they went through. This is a slide of my family. My father and I on the left, my brothers, my father, my daughter and myself, and then my daughter and I. My daughter's 16 years old, turning 17 this Tuesday. She surprised the hell out of me and said, I want to join the volunteer firehouse. This month, I'm going on 30 years in the fire service. Volunteer firehouse, I never knew that any one of my kids wanted to join. I have 4 children, 30, 29, 17, and 18. She's my youngest, Lily. Never saw this coming in a million years. Family's everything to me, and as I get older and more mature in life, or I like to think I'm getting more mature, I talk about with maturity comes clarity. Things start to refocus as you get older. You understand and prioritize life, and family truly is everything to me. My 2 brothers are older. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. My father's been a fireman for, I think, almost 60 years now. My 2 brothers have been doing it longer than I have, and now my daughter. This slide means everything to me. I've been to fires with all of them. I've been in harrowing positions with all of them. We've been in backing each other up in arguments and maybe a couple brawls every once in a while when we were younger. This slide is what the fire service represents, and I'm sure it's no different here in Delaware. Family, family, family. My daughter Lily, when she wanted to join, she hit me out of left field with it. I was not ready for it. The firehouse is my place. It's been my place for 30 years. I have my own reputation there. I have nicknames there. I've done what I've done there. And I was very protective of that. When my daughter wanted to join, I'm going to be honest with you, my first reaction was absolutely not. Crazy, right? A guy that loves the fire service was going to keep his daughter from wanting to do it. And very, very quickly in my own mind, I said, what are you doing? The fire service has given so much to me. Why would I take that away from my daughter? And very quickly I changed my tune, and in fact, I've come to embrace it. And in fact, it's actually gotten me more excited. It's fun to watch how eager she is to learn. Is she going to be a firefighter for the rest of her life? Probably not. She's got incredible and ambitious desire in life to be a corporate attorney, wants to go to Georgetown Law. She's a super smart kid. And I'm telling you, she's going to make a big mark on this world. And so I don't know if the fire service is going to be her long haul like mine. But I can tell you this. What it does for her is it gives her structure, gives her grounding, gives her all the things that we fell in love with the fire service. She's now falling in love with the fire service. Nobody gets to take that away from anyone. And we have people in our firehouses today that are robbing our new kids of the love that I have for the fire service, and shame on them. We cannot let anyone turn you away. We can't let you not fall in love with this. We all have a job here, and that is to make the next generation fall in love with the fire service. I just recently took a class at the fire academy. I haven't been back to my county fire academy in many years to further my education, but I needed this hazmat incident command class, and it was terrible. It was death by PowerPoint, and yesterday we had to do a practical where we had to do scenarios, stand up in front of the room, and go through the whole incident management system. And we started talking about another instructor that was there that ended up getting terminated recently, and a couple of my probies went through his Fire 1 class, and this guy was an absolute piece of crap, and I'll leave it at that. I could go deeper. But I'm going to say this. They put that guy in charge of the Fire 1 program. Could you imagine that being a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid coming into the volunteer fire service and having some washed-up guy who hasn't been on a fire truck in 35 years, who's got a piss-poor attitude, he wants to flex and tell everybody how wonderful he is? That's the introduction to the fire service? That's who we're putting at day one? We're doing it wrong. We can't allow that. And yet we have that in our fire companies. We have those individuals chasing people away on day one because of their own ego. That's a problem. That's a problem. So family to me, everything. Teaching my daughter the beautiful life skills that come with the fire service, beautiful. I love it. This is the other family business, Tri-State Bearing. We sold this company going on 6 years ago. Growing up, I grew up in an upper middle class neighborhood. I really didn't have much struggle, I'll be honest. My father provided for us. It was a family business. He started the company in 1980. I was a ball-bearing salesman. It's a freaking punchline, man. Go to cocktail parties, dinners, birthdays, meet people. What do? I'm a ball-bearing salesman. But that's truly what I was. I sold bearings and power transmission equipment. I was in heavy industry for many, many years. And so growing up in the family business, it was a lot of fun. But there was a lot of trials and tribulations that came with that. We sold the business 6 years ago to a competitor, gave my father his out, and I went to work for them as a technical consultant, which I still do today outside of National Fire Radio. I'll get into that. But this is truly who I was. I don't know if you guys know Tommy Boy. It's a fantastic movie, one of my favorites from the 90s. And we'll get into generational conversations in a minute. But Fat, Drunk, and Stupid, that was me for a very long time. Like I said, I grew up with not a lot of adversity or problems. A lot of things were given to me. I took that for granted. I went off to college. I went to college for 5 years because why not, right? Why work hard? I was taking advantage of everything that was given to me. Went to college for 5 years, and in college at that time, I really fell in love with the fire service. I joined at 18 at home, and then I went off to college. I went to Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York. And very quickly, I came to realize, and I went there to play Division I lacrosse. I got recruited to play Division I lacrosse. It was my game. I absolutely loved it. Got to college, realized drinking and girls were more important than Division I structure, and I threw away my lacrosse career. Not that people go pro and make millions of dollars playing pro lacrosse, but I had structure in place, and I threw it away. It's a regret I have, and I don't have many regrets. That's one. When I was in college, I did have this unbelievable love for the fire service. I was that kid growing up, 8, 10, 12 years old, reading Firehouse magazine, looking at the hot shots, reading Fire Engineering magazine, getting to understand who the people were, the players, the people that built the fire service that I have come to love. Understanding and educating myself. So when I could become a firefighter, I did because of my father, and I loved it. When I went to college, I found a combination fire department right outside of my college, Fairview Fire District. Small career and volunteer firehouse. They had at the time when I was there, I think 2 or 3 paid guys, and then it went to 4, and now they're up to 8, I think, around the clock. But what happened was the volunteers filled in, very much like a lot of the systems around here. Few paid guys, few career firefighters supplemented by volunteers. I went to a lot of fires up there. I had a lot of fun. If I didn't want to go out drinking and partying on a Friday night, I stayed at the firehouse, bunked in, we'd go to fires. It was fun. It was a fun time. And that really is where I cut my teeth being a fireman. And I loved it. I loved everything about it to the point that I tested. I had opportunity to get hired there twice. And I deferred it both times because as my college career started ticking on, I started growing up a little bit. Remember that whole with maturity comes clarity? I guess maybe I was starting to mature a little bit. I was starting to grow up. And I realized that if I didn't finish college then, I was never going to go back and finish it. If I took that career fire job at that time, I would have never finished my bachelor's degree, and it would have been money down the drain. And again, my father, my mother, they paid for my college, and I felt indebted to them to finish. So I deferred the job both times. And, college ran out. I moved home. I graduated. And those jobs dried up. And I came home and I started testing. Tested for New York City, tested for, all the New Jersey Civil Service, a lot of different jobs. But the thing is, which is kind of wacky up by us, is you have to really commit to getting hired. If you want to be a New York City fireman, you got to live in the 5 boroughs. There's no playing games. You want to be New Jersey Civil Service, you got to live in the city that you want to work in. You have to have residency before you take the test. They do investigations. They follow up on you. It is a full-time job to get hired in the New York, New Jersey area, no doubt. Now, high school, I probably would have had a change of path. The internet didn't really come around until my senior year of high school. So my first email address was freshman year of college. I didn't know programs like you have here in Delaware and Maryland, these bunking programs, opportunities that existed. I had no idea they existed until I was in college. I probably would have had a different change, a different trajectory, but I stayed on the one I was on. I come home from college, I become Tommy Boy. I'm with the family business. My father gives me a credit card, a vehicle, He tells me, go build sales. You're an outside salesman for the family business. I didn't know jack shit about the family business. All I knew is I knew how to entertain, I knew how to golf, I knew how to cocktail and go to good restaurants and burn up the bill on the American Express card for the company. Take advantage of my father's trust and love for me as Tommy Boy. I didn't know anything about the family company. 2008, 2009 come, and there's quite a correction in the economy. I get a phone call. That phone call is, hey, meet me for breakfast. It's my father. I meet him. He says to me very kindly, it's you or the employees. What am I doing? I didn't understand. I was so disconnected. I didn't know what he was talking about. The company was hemorrhaging money. I was a big part of it. And he said to me, I got to cut you off or I got to lay off employees. What am I doing? That day when I made the decision to stay with the family business was the day that I realized it was not going to be a career fireman. That dream and ambition that I had being on tests and testing and doing all these things, I had to stay with the family business. It was the safe bet. And when I stayed with the family business, the American Express card, the car, and all those perks that I had got taken away, and I got put behind a desk. Answer that phone when it rings, take orders, learn the business. And I did. I grew up that day. I started learning the family business, and I actually learned it very well. I became very good at it. And in fact, we started growing the company. And I started building the business on the back of a few things, but one of them was social media. I learned and understood how to take social media and start building brand and awareness and educate people, and in return, business and sales come. And so we did pretty well. Now, not going to lie, my two brothers that were in that photo to begin with, that are firemen, also work for the business. But see, the hard part was I started getting really good at the job, and now I become my two older brothers' bosses. I'm now their boss. That becomes very difficult and challenging. If any of you are involved in a family business, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Resentment started to build. I started resenting my father, who I love and who's my idol. I started resenting my father. My brothers and I weren't hanging out at the firehouse anymore. We weren't having birthdays, or other than birthdays and Christmas, we weren't really seeing each other. No more picnics, no more hanging out on weekends, no more games to go to together. We started falling apart. I needed time for a change. It was time for a change. And so the thing with that was, that's when we started looking. See, I was in the process of buying the family business, which is kind of crazy. I was in the process of buying my father out to give him the retirement and parachute he needed and deserved. I got cold feet. The night before I was buying the family business, my wife says to me, what's the matter? And I said, I'm not feeling it. She said, then don't do it. She said, you already work 6 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. How much more time can you put in if you're going to buy the company? You only work there. Imagine when you own it. And she was right. I walk into the meeting the next day, ready to sign paperwork, ready to buy the company. I look at my father. I say, Dad, and this is emotional for me every time I tell the story. I say, Dad, I think I need more time. He looks at me and says, you take all the time you need. He said, if it's right for you, it's right for you. If it's not, it's not. I pushed away from the table. I felt like I let him down. I felt like I let my brothers down. I felt like I let our whole family down because this was the next generation of the family business. 6 months later, we sold to a competitor, and it was one of the best decisions of my life. I get my days back. I get my weekends back. I got to know who my kids are again. And I'm grateful for those opportunities. I tell this story because I think it's important as I go forward in this program today for you to really understand that I'm guilty. One of the slides that's going to come up just says, I'm guilty. Every single thing I talk about today, I'm guilty of. Not spending enough time in a firehouse, I'm guilty. Not taking the young kids under my wing and teaching them better ideas, better methods, operations, strategy, tactics, I'm guilty. We're all guilty. None of us are perfect. And so get your ego out of the way and let's start having real conversation. And that is how we fix and address the problems that are plaguing our fire service today. It was time for a change, and that change was for me to get back into the fire service. This right here, what is National Fire Radio? I'm sure there's many of you that don't know what it is, so I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you exactly what we are. It's a podcast and social media platform. I missed being a career fireman. My volunteer firehouse puts out career firemen every single year. And I'm the guy that's been there for 30 years watching all these kids come up under my tutelage, under me riding with them, working with them, and I watch them grow. And then I watch them fall in love with the job. And then they go and get hired somewhere else. And it's a beautiful thing. It is an absolutely beautiful thing that you take new kids coming into the fire service, letting them fall in love with it, and then putting them out into the world where they can take what they learned at home and now share it with the world as a career. Nothing gets better than that. But I missed that. I didn't get to do that. And so for me, I felt that the fire service was missing. I was watching the change in the fire service. I'm watching the older gentlemen in the fire service 20, 25, 30 years in a firehouse is getting pissed off and disgruntled. They're angry, the disconnect, the new generation, the administration screwed them. And so that beautiful career they had the last few years gets tarnished, and now they leave as a cranky old guy. And everything they did leading up to those last couple of years doesn't go noticed anymore. I'm watching this happen time and time again. And I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing? How do we protect their legacy? How do we build upon their love that they had for the fire service at one time? I said, let's tell their stories in perpetuity. I built our family business on the back of social media. I said, I can build the fire service on the back of social media. That's what I started to do. I told my wife I had this crazy idea when everything was going down at work, and she said, go do it. And that's what I've been doing. This year, we'll be going on 7 years of building National Fire Radio. It is a podcast where I capture stories. Originally, it was the stories of the senior man. Now it's gone into so much more than that. We also have a full media marketing team behind us. I have almost up to a 9-person team now that works on media marketing projects across the industry. We work with most major manufacturers. We do a lot of consulting and media projects for them. How do manufacturers sell to the fire service if they don't have any firefighters in their marketing departments? That's where you find disconnect. We're trying to eliminate disconnect, get the conversation going, and make it authentic. So this has been super important to me, and it's consumed me. It's absolutely consumed me. Real quick, no room for embellishment. Firefighters don't stand for it. We sniff the bullshit from 100 miles away. That's why I tell you my story today. Before I go into the program, that's why I give you my bio, because I'm guilty. I suck too. It's just, what do we do about it? Community and delivery is super important for me. We want to promote the best of the job. That's it. And when I talk about the job is the job. I'll get into that in a minute. And if we can educate every 16 to 36-year-old that's coming through the door or that are there now, they will be the decision makers. Let's educate them so they make the right decisions as they go on in their fire service career. Full transparency, 100% authentic. Like I said, I suck too. It's that simple. The job, we all do it. It's very simple. Some people get crazy about this. Career, volunteer, whatever it is. I know in Delaware there's quite the combination, a lot of combination departments, and they're all viewed the same. And I think that's a beautiful thing because truthfully, fire does not care. It does not care who you are, where you come from, you get a paycheck, or you volunteer your time. What does matter is that we all do it to the same level, the same commitment, and the same passion. Fire will kill you, it doesn't matter. So to me, when I go through this, I just talk about the job because I don't know what else to call it. Every time I say the fire service, it's long and drawn out, I call it the job. If you take issue with that, I'll be in the parking lot after. We can have a conversation and shake hands. And I'm guilty. Like I said, every single thing I talk about today in this program, I'm guilty of. I don't do everything right, and a lot of times I do everything wrong. What do you do with when you do it wrong? Like on the fire ground, when you screw up, when you drop the ball, when you should have been able to pop that lock faster, stretch that line better, throw that 24 better. What do you do with that? You just bury your head in the sand, go back to the firehouse, and be like, maybe next time I'll get it. Or do you go back and work on it? Do you address it? Is there accountability built into your own personal system? That matters. I'm guilty. We're going to get into the generational conversations. This part of the program is kind of important because as I go through the rest of the program now, it matters when you start talking about the generations because they all have different generational values. They all come from a different time in history, which influences who they are and their outcome. The greatest generation, 1901 to 1925, ages 99 to 122. I do have to update this. This program is about a year old on these slides, so I do need to fix that. They were impacted by the Great Depression. They're called the greatest generation because of their hard work ethic. They were frugal, and most of them were soldiers that fought in World War II. These are hard-hitting people that came from a tough time in history. We call them the greatest generation because truly, truly, they are representative of the true values of what the United States stands for. The silent generation, this is my father's generation, 25 to 45, 78 to 98. They make up the smallest generation because they were impacted by World War II. They work within a system. My grandfather died at a very young age. My dad was like 14. And from 14 on, he had to raise 4 other siblings and my grandmother because he was the oldest boy. He put his head down and worked. This generation didn't push back against the system. They worked, and they worked hard. My father is going on 83 years old today. We sold the company going on 6 years ago, I think it is now, 6. And he still is a 1099 salesman for us because he just doesn't want to stop, which is beautiful because it keeps his mind sharp and it lets him still practice what he enjoys doing. So that's the type of people that come from the silent generation. It's the smallest generation, but very hardworking. Boomers, 46 to 64, 59 to 77, one of the most relevant generations in history, okay? Much like, and I'll get into it, millennials, they're often misunderstood, but also like Gen X, which I'll get to in a minute, they understand technology. They went from simpler times, moving up through as business owners. They understand technology, and that's super important. They're independent. They're often misunderstood. A lot of them have midlife crisis. A lot of them get tattoos older in life, listen to crazy music. Think about it. They're influenced by so many things. Their generation, Vietnam, civil rights movement, all of those things influenced them. Those were changing times in our country's history, which impacted their generation. Generation X, I say the best generation because this is me. Graduated high school in 1995. We knew life, we truly knew life as a kid before the internet and obviously where we are today. So my first email address, like I said, was freshman year of college. We really didn't know what the email, what the internet was. My AOL dial-up, I mean, you used to pick up women on the AOL chat rooms and, it was crazy. It was like new times, right? So the guys that are my age are smiling and chuckling right now because we all did it. Right? That goo dial-up, right? AOL. It was crazy. It was a crazy time. But the one thing that we know, this generation, is we'd go out during the day and we'd come home when the streetlights came on. And as cliche as that sounds, when we talk about it, we did that. My parents had no freaking clue where I was. I follow a couple of these like 80s, 90s like meme pages on like Instagram, and they're hilarious because they're dead on. BMX bikes, gone all day, building forts in the woods, finding a nudie mag in the dumpster at the quick shop. Like these are all things that were huge, momentous things for us growing up. And we did it every single day. But we were always home for dinner. It was a carefree time. I'm so happy that I grew up in this generation. I'm lucky. But the one thing that comes to mind, and this is why it's in bold, and this is where the program comes from, was when I got to the firehouse, I was the kid that always bridged the gap between young and old. So I would take the older guys in the firehouse and ask the younger kids to come sit next to them. I was the guy that couldn't get enough of the stories. I think about when my father, early on in life, when I was a kid, I didn't have a green light to the firehouse any day I wanted. And this is something I'll talk about real quick, and some people might agree with me, some might disagree. It's absolutely a place where you want to bring your children and let them fall in love with the fire service at 5, 6, 7 years old. But maintain the line of the importance and respect of that place. I get crazy when guys bring their kids to the firehouse and they run around like lunatics. Drives me nuts. Have respect for the building and the equipment and what we stand for. Bring your children into the firehouse. let them walk around and enjoy it and understand the camaraderie. My kids know every single guy in my firehouse, and every single guy in my firehouse knows my children by name. That's the importance of it. When I grew up, my father held me at arm's length from the firehouse. When it was there, it was a treat, and I loved it because I couldn't get enough of it, but I wasn't allowed there every single day. I wasn't allowed to run around on the trucks. I had to ask if I could climb on the truck or look at something. There's a different level of respect there than what I think's happening today. A lot of guys bring their kids to the firehouse today and they run around like maniacs. And I get it, but parent them. Slow them down. Teach them the importance of what the firehouse stands for. We can embrace families and bring them into our firehouses for sure. They belong there. But there's got to be a level of respect for it. And I think that the way my father raised myself and my brothers in the firehouse, I truly believe that that's how I am today. And that's how I raised my children at the firehouse, was this isn't a free-for-all. You don't get to just open a door and run in the place and go grab a soda and do this and do that. Respect. Slow down. Treat the place with pride. That, I think, is super important. So my father, growing up, I was a kid, and when I got to go to the firehouse, those guys that he worked with there, pillars. These guys were 8 feet tall. They'd have so much fun. Back then, they could drink beer in a firehouse. I'm not against it. They knew when to. After drill night, play cards, maybe have a pop. But man, when that pager went off or that siren blew, it was work. It was time to go to work. And those guys were pillars to me, giants. And I have the utmost respect for them. We have this Saturday coming up, a week from yesterday, is our 100th anniversary dinner, and we invited back every single living member that ever was a member of the department. I can't wait to see guys that I haven't seen in all these years. I am so ecstatic to introduce my daughter who joined to guys that were important to me, that mentored me. Super, super important. So Generation X, we bridge that gap, and that's what this program's all about. Sharing the message between young and old, finding commonality between the different generational values that we're talking about, finding a way to communicate. It takes work on both ends. Millennials 80 to 94, 29 to 43. My oldest is a millennial, Michael, and holy shit is he a millennial. He just fits every stereotype. I love him to death, but I want to strangle him sometimes. We don't talk politics in our house anymore. We don't talk certain issues, but that's okay. They're socially conscious, something that I think is super important, right? And we're going to get into the whole asking why thing and all that later on in this program. But this part here, socially conscious, they appreciate constructive feedback. This generation wants to know what they're doing wrong, but they also need to know what the expectations are. What we don't do well in the fire service is explain expectations. Shut up, kid. Sit in the corner. We'll get to you. That worked for me because they did get to me. How many of us are getting to them today? If we carry that same mantra of shut up, kid, go sit in the corner, are we actually getting to them? Nope, we're not. We're not. They fall out of love with it. They disappear. That's that whole retention thing I was talking about. I'm going to go heavier on that in a little bit. This generation is smart, is active. My son doesn't care how many zeros are in his bank account. It's important, don't get me wrong. Totally financially savvy, smart, has a great job, works in New York City, commutes in from Hoboken, which is like this little slice of heaven in New Jersey that you got to be super put together to be able to live there. He's going on 30 years old. His kid's got his stuff together. But man, they're just so dialed in compared to where I was at 30. 30, I was a completely different guy than him. And this is just the next generation after mine. It's a very, very different setup today. Generation Z, 95 to 2012, 11 to 28. This is the first generation that dealt with a lot of cyberbullying, school violence, things that I never had to grow up with. We got in fistfights in school. You got an in-school detention. You're back in class the next day. We didn't bring weapons. We didn't have cyberbullying. There was bullying, maybe on the school bus or on the playground, but not the way it is today, not how it gets to come home. This Generation Z is dealing with some really tough things, right? Really tough things. My two youngest, 17 and 18. So I have two sets of kids. I've mentioned them before. Michael's 30, Kendra's 29, Paige is 18, and Lily's going to be 17 on Tuesday. So my wife had two children from a previous marriage. They're my stepchildren, 30 and 29, but they've been mine since they were 5 and 6. They're my kids. There's no difference. But we have two sets of kids. But we had built-in babysitters, which was awesome. But it also worked out really well because the differences between their age, they just gelled so well. And I'm so grateful for that. But my 17 and 18-year-old, when I sit at dinner with them at night, do you think that the conversation is the same that I had with my parents growing up? No way. They're so involved. Entrepreneurial, diversity and inclusion, work-life balance. These are things that matter to them. My 16-year-old, who's going to be 17, Lily, she wants to be a corporate attorney. This kid will argue politics, abortion rights, death penalty, anything she can argue with me at dinner, she will. I didn't do that with my parents. Are you kidding me? I was scarfing down dinner, and 20 minutes later, I'm like out the door. Go hang out with my friends, try to kiss a girl, like all this stuff, right? They don't worry about that stuff. They're in a different headspace. They're in a different place. They're overwhelmed with information. They have information pouring in on them. What the hell did I know about current events at 16, 17 years old in 1993? Nothing. Nothing. So if you think about that, where they come from, their perspective, their points of view, they're better educated than we ever were growing up. That will certainly influence how they carry themselves, how they operate, how they perform at the firehouse, how you communicate with them. Makes for an interesting conversation. Gen Alpha, 2013 to 25, 0 to 10, youngest generation. This is the generation, this is the iPad generation. When they're at dinner, iPads shoved in their face. I'm not saying if that's right or wrong as a parent. You parent the way you want to. I'll share this story with you. My wife and I hate it. I believe people need to parent, and I think that's a big part of what the problem is today. My wife carries a pack of Uno cards in her purse. We took our kids out to dinner very early on. We love cocktails, we love dining, we love good food. That's our hobby in our house. We love different restaurants. We have our go-tos. It's just who we are, my wife and I, and now my children. It's what we do. We never ever let our children go on a tablet or on their phone at the dinner table. We carried a pack of Uno cards. We'd play a game as a family. We go out to dinner, we push everything to the side while we're waiting for our meal, and we play Uno or another card game. See, parenting's funny. It's just like the firehouse, right? It takes work. So when things are on autopilot, or you can just shove something in front of our new kids. How old are you guys? Thank you for being here, by the way. Awesome. How old? 14 years old, guys. 14 years old on a Sunday morning. You know what my kids are right now? Sleeping. My 17-year-old, who's a junior firefighter with me, I was like, you want to come with me tomorrow? No. No, I got plans. It's my birthday weekend. I'm like, you got a weekend for your birthday? What the hell is that? My birthday was last Tuesday. No joke. I get up in the morning, 5:30 in the morning. I'm leaving the house before 6. I get a text message from one of my buddies. It says, happy birthday. Have a great day. I laughed to myself. I forgot it was my birthday. I came home that night at 9 o'clock after a full day of shit. I come home and I go, at least, I'll have a cupcake or something. My wife's sleeping. Paige was going to bed, and Lily's studying for a test. I went to bed, I watched some TV and went to bed by 9:45. Birthdays to me, whatever. I don't know. I felt slighted this year, I'm not going to lie. But my daughter gets a whole weekend, so she's not here. My point is 14 and 14, and these guys are here today. That's a win. Whatever got them here, bravo. Whether it's their fire company, whether it's National Fire Radio, whatever it is, they found something that got them here. What a win for the fire service. Next year, let's get 100 of them here. That's how we win. How do we get them here? This generation, my kids are this generation raised by parents that knew technology. So maybe put the iPad away and give them a pack of Uno cards. Teach them how to operate in public. Teach them please and thank you. Those core tenets of life that people are missing. Here's one. Walk with your head up, not with your head down. I love watching those videos of people falling in fountains at the mall because they're on their phone. I love it, man. I love it. Walk with your head up. A simple smile. Right? In New Jersey, I had to pump my gas at the Wawa this morning down here, which is fine. I don't mind. But in New Jersey, they pump our gas for us. We pull in the gas station, guy comes up, can I help you? When I get greeted with a smile, or the guy says good morning or good afternoon, when he's done pumping my gas, I give him $3-4, just as a thank you. And I always say to him, like, hey, man, get a cup of coffee. Right? If they greet you with a smile. You know what that $3-4 could possibly do for that guy that day? That could have been the most important thing that happened to him all day. Or a simple smile, or a simple engagement. I walk in this morning and I get introduced to people. You look them in the eyes and you shake their hand. You share a smile. It goes a very long way. Bring that to your firehouse. How many guys stand there with a puss on their face? How many guys don't engage people? How do you not engage these two kids? How do you not want to lift them up and find out why they're here? Who made you fall in love with the fire service? That matters. Are you asking those questions, or do you take for granted that those kids are here? Do you take for granted that these guys are in your firehouse? Shame on you if you are. And I can guarantee you we all do. We take the fire service for granted more than we've ever known to do it. Something every generation wants, we want to make it easier for the next generation. G. Michael Hoff, hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. I'll leave it up to you to figure out where we are in society right now, but I think you all have a good idea where we are. The fire service can't live this way. The people we protect and the people that trust us to do our job unconditionally do not give a shit what generation you come from. They don't care what you look like. We have one job to do, and we've been doing that job since the creation of the American Fire Service. Plain and simple. We don't get to have a bad day. We're Generation Firefighter. We don't care if you're the silent generation, Gen X, Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and everything in between. We don't care. We don't care, so let's not make it an issue. The problem is the cultural values and upbringing of each generation influences how you work and communicate in your firehouses. The problem is times are changing quicker than ever before. Are you willing to change with it? Does that mean that my father, at going to be 83 this year, who's still in the firehouse hanging out, he just started slowing down from riding the trucks with us? He still has his wits, man. This guy's a home run. He's my idol. He's solid. Does that mean that we can have disconnect? Does that mean that he can maintain his hard line of shut up kids, sit in the corner? Or does he need to soften his approach? See, we always point the finger on the way down, meaning the kids coming in are the problem. I think a lot of the problem that exists currently in the firehouse, and it's not the new generation coming in. This new generation is hungry and excited. Do they have the mechanical aptitude that I had when I drove my bicycle around the neighborhood in 1993 and my chain fell off? No, I put it back on. I got greasy hands. I'm rubbing it in somebody's wet grass to get it off. Rub it on my pants. My jeans had holes in them that I made, not the store cutting holes in them like my daughters have. Right? It's different times. Are you willing to change also? You have 30 years in the fire service. Are you willing to get down on one knee and have a real conversation with a 14-year-old kid? That's important. That's how we're going to survive and succeed. That is how we're going to make them fall in love with the fire service and continue their education. That's how it works. But this group meeting this morning here, training officers and probably chief officers, I would assume. You guys set the tempo in your firehouses. It's your problem. See, when you choose to sit at the top of the hill, every single thing that goes on in your firehouse is your fault. I'm guilty, guys. Me too. But I am saying this, it all comes from the top. You have to accept responsibility for the cultures you have in your firehouse. If you don't like how it's happening, you have people leaving your firehouse, you have people that don't want to ride there anymore, and they start fading away, I promise you it's your fault. It's your culture. Create a culture where people want to be a part of something. I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but man, I'm telling you, nobody wants to be on a sinking ship, and nobody wants to be on a losing team. What do you want in your firehouse, losers or winners? Because I want to hang with winners, man. That's how I run. Fire service, we don't see age. Understanding and mutual respect is what matters most. I can't stress that enough. I appreciate them just as much as how long you've been in the fire service? Oh, I can't do math, man. 15, 18 years. How long have you been in the fire service? Who's got more than 40 years in the fire service? Anybody in here? Thank you. Truly, thank you. I respect you just as much as I respect him. And you should be doing the same. You should know his name. You should get to know their parents, their siblings, what makes them tick, what they love, what they need, why they're in your building, why they want to be a fireman. That's your job to know that. Are you getting on that knee and talking with them and making them feel at home? How often do we hear this? The young kids, right? We got some younger guys in here. I see a couple faces that look a little bit younger than me. Shut up, old man. I'm tired of it. It's not the way it is. It's always been that way. It's not going to be that way anymore. Shut up. I'm tired of it. Stupid kid. Stop asking why. My father says to me all the time, what's wrong with these kids? Why do they always got to ask why? Why do they ask so many questions? I said, because they want to know. What's wrong with that? I'll tell you what's wrong with that. The guys that are supposed to be providing the answers probably don't have the answers. So instead of answering the why and moving on, they're telling them, shut up, kid, we'll get to you. How about you just educate them? How about you tell them why? Now, obviously the fire ground's not the place for the why. After the fire, hot wash, training, those are the places for the why. Absolutely. Not on the fire ground. We have to have trust on the fire ground and understand the process, strategy, tactics, operationally speaking. But the why, we have people in the fire service that preach, and they can't answer the why. So they feel threatened. When you have a 14-year-old kid asking the 8-year member, why do we do it that way? And the 8-year member doesn't know, that's a problem. That is a problem that plagues all of our firehouses, and I'm guilty of it too. Are there things that I should know more about my organization? Yes. Should I know more about the blueprint and the fundamentals I grew up in the fire service? Yes. I don't have all the answers, so then humility steps in. How do you deal with that? You don't tell them to shut up and go sit in the corner. We don't have that luxury. So you know what we got to do? We got to work. Now that 8-year guy, 20-year guy, 30-year guy, 40-year guy actually has to go do some work to save face to a 14-year-old kid. You know how hard that is for most guys? Very. Are you willing to put the work in on yourself? See, the beautiful thing is, like my daughter, when she joined the fire service and caught me off guard with that, she made me better. She made me more accountable now. So when I'm not driving as much anymore, the first new engine out of my engine company, I'll let another guy jump the seat so I can ride the back seat again, which is fantastic because I get to steal the nozzle from the kids, which is great. But I also get to take a knee with them and talk them through it, give them and tutor them and mentor them. That's super important. She's holding me more accountable than ever before, and I'm grateful for that. It's making me better 30 years in the fire service. I'm grateful for that. These guys, though, I go after every generation in here. These guys deserve the utmost respect, 30 years, 20 years, 40 years. Give them your time. Give them your appreciation. Sit with them. Learn from them. They have stories to share and information to give. Go get it. Because before you know it, we're burying these guys. Not you guys. You got a long way to go. We have to get that information out of our people and create an environment where we share information up and down. Oops. We love to blame as something we all have in common. If you want to find commonality in the fire service, it's this. We love pointing a finger, man. I'm guilty of it too. It's just easier, right? If you don't have to put the work in on yourself, if you don't have to take accountability for your message or your stance or your position, it's just easier to point the finger, man. We love to blame everyone else. So out of the generational values, that's what we all share. We love to blame one another. If you want, just blame me. Social media, podcast, innovation, technology, right? It's my fault. I'll take responsibility for the entire fire service. I don't care. We blame the cell phone. We blame the internet, social media. We blame it all. You know who's behind all of it? People. It's just another tool. So we're blaming the tool. We're blaming where we're getting our information and content. We're not blaming the individual. When somebody leaves a snarky comment on Facebook or Instagram or goes after people with cyberbullying or creates a fake account, it's not Facebook's fault, folks. It's the piece of crap that's doing it. Where's the ownership? We can blame the delivery method. You can blame National Fire Radio. You can blame podcasts and social media all you want. It's the individual behind it that should assume responsibility for it. I think we need to stop blaming. I think we need to start embracing. There are fire companies that take these tools and use them as a positive. It's about engagement, right? Like when I do this class, I'll be honest, when I do this class, I get fired up. I walk a lot, I'm loud, I project, but I also look around the room and it's typically most people are engaged. They're leaning forward in their seat, they're listening, their eyes are on me. It's all about delivery. Are you doing that in your firehouse? How do you deliver the message? Are you taking your phone and being like, all right, everybody's on their phone, so I'm going to grab mine. Guys, did you go on Instagram today? Did you follow? You see this one? You see this job down in Baltimore? Did you see this job out in LA? You see this job in Chicago? Let's talk about that. First new footage. See those guys dragging that 24 to the rear? Did you see that cut they made? Did you see they bridged the alley with a roof ladder? Are we taking the tools that we all have and putting them to use to build our culture? It takes work. It takes work. It's so much easier for everybody to sit around the table on their phone and nobody's talking. All it takes is one guy or girl to get the conversation going. Everybody wants to talk fire. It drives me nuts in my firehouse on a training night. Monday night's like our weekly training night, right? Where guys come down to the firehouse. We have a rotation on skills and equipment and all the things we do. Truck checks every Monday night with the company and then all these different things. But nothing drives me up a wall after training when we put everything together. We're sitting at this huge, we have a bowling alley as a table. It's like from here to the wall. All the guys are sitting there and they're talking about everything but firefighting. It drives me nuts. Why are we not talking about firefighting? It consumes me. Why are we not talking about strategy and tactics or the last fire or what you could do better or what we did great? Like, those are the conversations that I want to be a part of. We could talk about football, of course. We could talk about gambling and zins and all the stuff that everybody else is into. Of course we can. But do you have a culture of firemanship in your firehouses? If you do, you're winning. I find most firehouses that don't have a good culture of firemanship are the ones that really are having a disconnect. It's because your focus and priority is on something more than the actual mission of what firefighting is all about. You look at your most winning fire companies, and I can promise you there's no bullshit in them. It's because their focus and culture is on firemanship. I think that truly matters. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. Went past that. Disconnect. Foundation. I believe in foundation, right? So tradition and culture. I think you got to know where you came from. I think you have to put the time in. We need to educate 14 where the fire company came from, the bricks and blocks that were a part of it, the people, the historical fires. We have to know, but we also need to know that the foundation is strong, but before we even build the foundation, is the ground strong enough for the foundation we build on? Meaning your roots. Do you know your roots? Are they strong roots? Get to understand the true history of your organization. That matters. I walk into firehouses all over the country. That's what I do. National Fire Radio is the coolest thing in the world because I like professionalized buffing. It's pretty cool, right? So I get to go to firehouses all over the country. I get to ride with some of the busiest companies in the country. I get to do some wild stuff that I never thought I'd be able to do before in the American Fire Service, and I get to do it every single day. The Rolodex, the contacts in my phone, the people I get to hang with and talk to and be a part of their inner circles are guys that I read their articles at 14, 15 years old. They're now friends of mine. I get to sit in these circles. I get to have an impact on the fire service with some of the biggest and best. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But know your foundation, know your roots, know where you come from, know why those people matter. That all allows for a stronger foundation and ground to build upon. Don't create a transient environment. I walk into these firehouses all over the country, and I can tell you in the first 60 seconds what kind of culture they have there. It's very easy. You look at the equipment, you look at the floor, you look at the condition of things, you look at the pictures, maybe some trophies, the plaques. If the guys come out and greet you, you know how many firehouses I walk into and nobody even gets out of their chair? Wild. But you know how many firehouses I walk into where a guy comes up and he's like, hey, man, I'm Bill. I'm like, hey, man, I'm Jeremy. Right? That matters. Engagement. Delivery of the message. What kind of culture do you have? All those things truly, truly matter. Morals, ethics, and values. I'm not even going to go into that. Communication, right? This is so typical. So typical, right? Are you talking for the sake of talking? When we communicate, it's much more than this. It's how we listen. I had a great conversation on a podcast the other day. Brian Emenecker, retired captain out of the city of Camden, New Jersey. We were chatting, and somehow we got on the topic, and I said to him, I go, man, you know what I love? I go, I love walking into a firehouse the day after a fire. It's that smell, the aromas, the stale, musty smoke. It hits you right in the nose, man. You open up the jump seat of the engine of the truck, and you're like, whoa. Senses, communication. Those things matter. And he said to me, he goes, there's nothing better in all my career. I can smell an old row home fire from like blocks and blocks away. You know the smells. I think that's just all part of communication. The fire service is all about your senses. We use it all. We hear for fire. We feel for fire. We look for fire. Every single sense in your body is used on a fire ground, no doubt. That's part of communicating. I think, too, your message matters. That whole shut up kid will get to you thing, I harp on that because it's still prevalent. Happens in my firehouse sometimes. And I get really upset with it. I get really upset with it because we're not really and truly communicating with those that come through our door. Are you listening? Do you listen? All of us talk. I was a young officer in the volunteer firehouse. I was a young officer and young chief of department. We have term limits, so we don't let guys hang on forever, right? So I was lieutenant, captain, assistant chief. Assistant chief was the best spot in our department. The assistant chief's the operations boss. It's his sandbox. He gets to build out the fire card. He gets to control the fire. The chief is the resource and mutual aid and safety and all that stuff built in, right? So, but in our world, the operations boss, the assistant chief, is the best job. I loved it, man. That was the best job ever. And then chief of department. I was a young chief of the department, and I can tell you that I knew everything. I had every single answer. I came in the room, and before I even let you finish talking, I was telling you how much I knew. What a piece of shit, Tommy boy. Go back to that slide. That's who I was. I was young. I was far-reaching. I knew everything, and I couldn't be told differently. I wouldn't listen. I would sit in committee meetings and tell everybody how great I was, all the accomplishments we've made. But man, what a pompous place to come from. I wouldn't listen, and all I did was talk. I think listening now, and as much as I talk today, and guys that know me will tell you, I talk a lot. You're just sitting here listening to me today, and I talk a lot. But man, do I listen more than ever. I listen not just what you have to say to me, but the way you sit, your mannerisms, the conversations, your friends, the way you look, the way you present yourself, the way you carry your tools on the fire ground. Those are all ways in which you communicate. And I'm listening more than ever. This drives me up a wall. This gentleman here is in his 90s in a volunteer fire company down in New Jersey. That is his coat. That is his leather. And he's allowed to have those. And if he wants to go for a ride on the truck, well, hey, Joe, get on. How dare we rob that from him? The fire service, for probably 60 years, 70 years of his life, and he still comes down on their drill night or still pops in when they have a call because he wants to be there. Don't take that away from them. Don't dismiss them. Don't make our old guys sit in the corner. Engage them and make them part of today's conversation. They are the fabric from which you came from. Everything they built before you even got there, recognize that. Make them a part of your institution. Do not put them out to pasture. Stop dismissing them. This guy still is allowed to jump on that truck when he wants to, and they engage him. I had a guy, Jack Willer, in my firehouse who passed away, I think 2 years ago now. Jack went MIA for quite a while. His wife was very sick with cancer, and he was home with her. And then when she passed, he probably hadn't come around the firehouse for 4 or 5 years. And one day he came down for a dinner or something we were having, and I saw him. I embraced him. I said, Jack, you know, I know Dot has been sick, and she had passed. And I said, what are you doing? He said, no, I'm home. His dog, his little white dog named Precious, and the dog ended up coming to the firehouse all the time with him. But my point of the story is this. Jack was home, and he felt disconnected from the firehouse. I said, Jack, we're here every Monday night. You know when we go out on runs because we always honk the horns at your house when we pass by. I'm like, and if there's ever a car in a parking lot, come. Be a part of us again. He took care of what he had to do at home. He fell away from the relationship of the firehouse. We brought him back. I bet you that firehouse prolonged his life by many years. He just passed about 2 years ago now, lived to 99 years old. The guy was driving kids to the Shriner Hospital in Philadelphia twice a week in his 80s. This is the type of gentleman he was. We got him back to the firehouse. His little dog, pain in the ass, he would bring it with him, and they would be in our firehouse every Monday night, and anytime he could come, he would come. You know what we did for him? Everything. Something simple like that really explains the culture of your firehouse. Take these guys and make them, put them in the center and make them a part of what your institution stands for. They worked so hard to build the place that I get to show up and ride at. I don't know the trials and tribulations they went through, the cold nights with open cabs, what all of us aspire to be in the nostalgia of the fire service, long coats, hip boots, cold nights on the back step. Half of us couldn't carry anything to what they did. Let's not lose track of that. Keep these guys around, make them part of your fabric. That is how you build a winning culture. On the other end, stop dismissing these guys. Let them ask why. Get involved. Find out where they come from, who they are, why they're there. Because you know what you might find out? You might find out some information that might get 5 more of them through your door. I talked about recruitment and retention before. I talked about the difference between them and how they cannot be talked about in the same conversation. They are 2 very different topics and need to be addressed as such. We talked about a little bit about retention and how important it is to take care of those that are already here. They already walked through the door. The hard part's over. How dare us lose them? Now let's talk about the recruitment side. These kids might have some secret sauce that if you're willing to take a knee and have some conversation, you might find out what got them through the door or what might help get more of those 14-year-olds to come through your door. Do you have the humility and willingness to listen? There's nothing worse today than dismissing people. We do it in politics. You're either red or blue. We're tribal. You're not allowed to be purple. You're not allowed to have a different point of view, because if you are, I'm going to shut you off and tell you my way. We don't have debate. We don't have conversation. It's either my way or no way. That's where we've gotten. We've become very polar in society, which has carried over to our fire companies. And we have fire chiefs and fire officers that it's their way or no way. And those departments are typically the ones that are watching people walk out the door and not even turn around to give it a final look. If your department is hemorrhaging people, a change is needed. I can promise you that. Stop dismissing one another. Have conversation. Listen. Take a breath. I get so pissed off in our company meetings where somebody's trying to speak and he gets spoken all over. Everybody else jumps on the guy for having a point of view or an idea. Or I can tell you how to do it better. Take a breath. This is coming from a guy that knew everything. Tommy boy, fat, drunk, and stupid. That was me. I had every opinion and told you what I thought. Today, it's kind of weird, but I'm almost like the voice of reason in my firehouse these days, which is terrifying when I think about that. They need it more than we know. The young kids need it. The older guys need it. 30-year guy like me, I need it. I need to still stay in love with it. I need to be impacted by those around me. I need to have conversation with young and old. I need to bridge that gap and let them have that conversation by finding each other. That is how we build culture. Time. Time's an important one. Anytime you ask somebody what's going on, what do they always say to you? Busy. I'm freaking busy, man. I work my job. I work National Fire Radio, and I have people at both that depend on me for their livelihood. So I have 2 full-time jobs that run my life. I have a wife who is amazing, going on 20 years this year, married, 25 years together. I have 4 children. I have family, the volunteer firehouse, and about 150 other obligations that keep me up at night. You know who else has all that too? You guys. Everybody does. We all have things. And so what's happened is, because we've gotten to that point in society today, the volunteer fire service, I'm going to talk about volunteer for a minute, the volunteer fire service is feeling that. That has really become a hard spot for us, is prioritizing how much time can you truly spend at the firehouse. When I was 18, 19, 20 years old, I was at the firehouse every single waking moment I could be. I'd wash the trucks, clean the floors, wait for the run, train, rinse, wash, repeat. Today, 30 years in, my volunteer house, we're still home response. We probably do between 700 and 800 runs a year. There are days that we go out the door 8, 10 times. Home response. Nobody at the firehouse. This is all home response. Do you think that I'm going to have 20, 30 minutes after each run to sit with those new kids and talk about what we just did? No, I don't. I'm guilty. I don't have the time to sit with those kids at the front bumper anymore like I used to when we had 1 run a day, 2 runs a day, maybe 3. Oh, shit, it's a busy day. 3 runs today. But you could take an hour out of that day because I didn't have everything else affecting me in life, and I could sit with those kids and work with them and tell stories. Do you know how important stories are in our firehouses? I love stories, man. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit, the importance of a story. They fuel your culture, and that's where we can learn. Training is not just the training grounds. It's not just classroom. It's also the informal training of having a conversation with the older guys or the mid-management guys or your captain or your chief. Having conversations. We can learn a lot that way too. Nobody ever complains about money anymore. It's always time. I wish I had more zeros in my bank account, but I don't say that to people. I just tell them I wish I had more time. I'm super busy. And yet, when one of my buddies calls me on a Wednesday night and says, hey, you want to sneak out and grab a cigar? You want to go do a stick? Maybe meet at the bar for 1 or 2? I find time. So it's not about having time. It's about what you're prioritizing. Nobody's going to prioritize the firehouse if the firehouse is a sinking ship. Nobody's going to put the firehouse in a priority pecking order if it's not a great place to be, if they're always getting beaten down, if there's poor leadership, if you're not allowed to see one of your ideas go through, if you're not allowed to have conversation, or your hands are being tied at every turn, or we don't promote firemanship. That's why people aren't at your building anymore. You have an environment that they don't want to be a part of. The prioritization of the volunteer fire service is dwindling because we don't give them a reason to be there. That's a problem. That's a problem. Lack of understanding. Respect, I think, is a funny thing, right? Everyone wants to be right, and compromise is always hard. We talk about communication with one another. Are you listening as much as you talk? Listen more than you talk. You'll learn more. You'll get to know people. With maturity comes clarity. I talked about that. Surprisingly, in my world, I'm 48 years old. Man, I've come a tremendously long way. I really was an entitled piece of shit early on in life as a high schooler and college kid. And only when life threw a hard curveball did I have to grow up. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. And that's why I stand here today and I feel comfortable speaking to you guys about this stuff. I'm guilty. I've done it all. I still screw up. I screw up all the time. The younger you are, the harder you push back. There's no doubt. There's going to be a slide coming up that says patience. We all lack it today, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But entitlement and patience, respect, these are all very, very powerful words that you can take nothing away from this program today, but understand that those are the core tenets of what creates a good culture in your firehouse, and you need to double down on them. We all come from different places, and I think that that's a beautiful thing, right? Because I'm going to be honest with you, like riding a fire truck's a lot of fun, right? Nowhere else do we have this crazy thing. My friends outside of the fire service, and I don't have many, they come over for a picnic or a barbecue, and they look around my backyard and on my porch, and then they look at me and they go, how does this work? You got an 80-year-old guy over here. You got an 18-year-old kid over here, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. This is your friend group? I said, yeah. How's that work? I said, great. They don't get it. If you're not in the fire service, you have no comprehension of what we do. We don't see that age. We don't see your color. We don't care what religion you come from. When I'm riding backwards and you're riding forward and we're going to a fire, do you think I give a crap about any of that? No. That's that mutual respect, that generation firefighter. That's what matters most. So we don't care where you come from. We don't care what color you are or anything else. That stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't. And so when I have parties and I have people from all age groups at my house that are firefighters, we have a mutual respect for one another. And people that are outside of the fire service just cannot grasp onto that. They just don't get how that works. And I don't think there's anything better, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. That stuff matters. Surround yourselves with different people. Get to know the guys and girls that are riding in your companies and understand their backgrounds and where they come from. Because I promise you, it makes you a better person. Respect comes from a place of understanding, showing care and interest in others. Do you truly care about the people you ride with? Do you? I don't know. I know I've had moments where I'm like, this guy's a piece of shit. I know there's guys and character flaws in guys and girls in our firehouses all over the country. Not all of us are perfect. Not all of us you're going to be friends with. There are guys and girls in your fire department that you're not going to be personal friends with. But do you carry an on-the-job respect for them? That when it's time to do the job, it's time to do the job. Do you get wrapped up in the nonsense? I truly believe, well, let's just go right to this one. I believe everybody gets respect up front. Respect is different than trust. One time I talked about this, people got crazy, so I had to put in red in capitals for people that like to critique that respect is different than trust. In the fire service, when somebody comes through your front door, give them all the respect in the world. Why wouldn't you? They're a human being. Respect them. treat them well. Give them that smile. That guy pumping my gas, give him $3, $4. That stuff matters. Give the respect up front. Let them lose it. Put it on them. Let them lose it. But give them respect up front. Why not? It's different than trust. Trust, I understand, on the fire ground has to be earned, and that comes with the process. That comes with longevity. I get that. This is just respect as a human being. Can I sit down with you gentlemen and break bread and have great conversation? I respect you guys. It's great. Now, you stab me in the back, you do something that's, off color, we're done. I don't have respect for you anymore, right? That's part of the equation too. But I truly believe that we need to give people the respect. And part of respect is stopping the dismissing. I did the 2 slides with the old guy and the young girl. Dismiss, dismiss, dismiss. We do it up and we do it down. But I can't implore you enough to take your feelings out of it. I'm going to get into that in a few minutes. It's fact versus feeling. The only reason we dismiss is because we inject our feelings. And when we inject our feelings, the message gets colorful. If you go fact-based, a lot of times you'll sit and listen because you'll have the facts to back something up. The only time we get heated and argue when we take points of view, it's because you're inserting your feelings and nothing more. It's not their fault. Well, this is always the great conversation for the older guys in the room. Especially the guys when I do this program, and I know a couple of them in the room, I kind of look right at them when I do it. Because if you're not happy with the next generation, it's your fault. You raised them. Now what? Checkmate, right? You don't like these young kids? They don't have mechanical aptitude? They don't know how to start a saw? Well, it's not really their fault. We've gone to batteries, right? Look at the fire ground, right? We started with extrication equipment. Now we have fans. Now we're running saws. Guys are running small little DeWalt's or Milwaukee's for the OV position now. Think about how nice that. Window bars and locks and gates and fences, throwing a little 24 volt off your back. That's awesome, right? Innovation, bettering the job. I no longer have to use my mechanical tools to pop locks if I can just cut the chain or cut the fence or force a metal door or something where we can use something simple like that, a light piece of equipment. The job is changing. Technology changes. Are we changing with it? My point is this. These younger kids, we have to teach more mechanical aptitude than ever before because they're not, like I said, changing their chain like I did in 1993 in the street. My kids now, if their bicycle chain falls off their bike, what do? They call me. They call me, Dad, my chain fell off. And what do? I go fix it. I fix it. I'm the problem. I should tell them, tough shit, walk it home or put the chain on yourself. That's what I did. You think my dad was going to leave whatever he was doing to come put the chain on my bicycle? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know what I do today? The other day, I took my daughter's car to put new windshield wipers on it, and I filled her tank. What the hell am I doing? I'm guilty. I am part of the problem. This is what we're creating. So if we're doing that, we are responsible. So then you know what we don't get to do? Point the finger. We don't get to blame because we created it. I will say this, and being here at a training academy and with Jeff doing his Fire 1 and 2 program, speaking of that, is Fire 1 and 2 together now as one program? Awesome. I think I was just at the academy yesterday. They were talking about that, and I thought it was a great idea because there's a lot of overlap.
Yeah, and 2 is so small.
Yeah.
Firefighter 1 is really long, firefighter
Yep.
2 is not, and Jeff found a better way to weave it together. So
Yeah. I think it's great. I'd love to pick your brain a little bit more about that, Jeff. I think that that's a winning equation, truly. And they were talking about that a little bit yesterday, and I was kind of being inquisitive about it because it makes sense, right? It just makes sense. But anyway, in your Fire 1 program, where when I went through 30 years ago, we knew how to start saws, we knew how to start fans, right? We knew what a choke was, we knew how to prime, we knew what mix was, right? We knew all those things. Today, they don't know those things. How about the plus and minus? Anybody know what plus and minus is? Screwdrivers. Like, what the hell? What the hell happened to flathead and Phillips head? It's now plus and minus. That's what they teach these kids. I had a guy in the firehouse ask for a plus screwdriver. I couldn't stop laughing, man. I was like, this is crazy, right? But think about it, right? This is where we are today. My kids never cut grass a day in their life. And then I'm going to expect them to run a saw? My daughter, Lily, who's going to be going through the fire academy this summer, I'm going to expect her to know we can't have that expectation anymore. So now what does that do to us, do to our system, do to the senior guys in the firehouse? We have to work harder. We have to put in more work. The things that we took for granted are no longer can be taken for granted. We have to double down and put in more work. Who the hell wants to put in more work? We're stretched for time as it is. Again, it's a struggle, for sure. The last line there, the worst day of their life, is the worst day of their life. My kids, they don't have a lot of struggle, I'll be honest with you. I provide for them. They live a pretty good life like I did growing up. And I hope that I'm not raising Tommy boys, and I don't think I am. My kids are dialed in. They are please and thank you. They hold doors open for people without being asked. They look at people in their eyes. They shake hands. They know how to engage in conversation. I am very, very grateful for my children. And my wife and I, to our credit, we worked our asses off to create good kids. And I think that that's something that I will truly be proud of to the day I die, is that the kids that I've created, I've invested my time into them to make them good kids. And I think they're going to be contributing to society. But you know what they haven't been front row of? A lot of tragedy or a lot of adversity. My daughter got a flat tire and she cried and cried and cried that she got a flat tire. And then her dad went and fixed it, right? But that was her worst day, getting a flat tire. I don't even want to tell you what my worst day is. And I know you all have had bad days, like really bad days. So these kids coming into our firehouses understand that their perspective is different. Their worst day is only their worst day. And if getting a flat tire was the worst day they ever had, and now they're in emergency services, please understand that when they're privy to something much worse than a flat tire, have some empathy for them. Talk to them. Work with them. Explain to them that this is unfortunately part of what we do, and make them feel comfortable to come forward and talk about it. More diverse, the better. It makes us uncomfortable, makes us understand, it makes us better. My children, when I went to high school, graduated in 1995, I think we had a couple black kids, a couple Asian kids, a couple Egyptian kids. That was it. My daughter's classes today are so diverse, and it's so cool. Like, my kids don't see color. They don't see anything other than the human being people are today. I think that's a very beautiful thing. I really do. Their friends have names that I have a hard time pronouncing or remembering. It's not just Lisa and John and Bill and Rick and Joe and Sally. It's very, very different today. Our communities look very, very different than they did from years ago. I think that makes us better. I think that's a win. I look at how successful my kids are when they look at people and they see the human being and nothing more. That's a beautiful thing. Parlay that to the fire service. What that does for us makes us better. Like I said, when you're riding backwards and forwards with the guys and the girls on your engine company or on your truck company, we don't see any different. We pull on scene, and whether it's a black neighborhood, white neighborhood, Arab neighborhood, it doesn't matter to us. Because the mission matters, the job matters. I think that's a beautiful thing. The fire service truly has gotten it right for a very long time. And I think a lot of the things we're seeing in the fire service today, where they're trying to make light of issues, and some departments have issues with this. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. But what I am saying is the majority of the fire service has understood this for a very, very long time. And I think that's something we should be very proud of. And I think that we need to take this, double down on it, and make sure that people understand that the fire service gets it, and we don't need outsiders telling us differently. Patience. We all live in a world of now. It's just now, right? We all lack patience, young and old. If you think about where we are today, everything is in your fingertips. So we don't have bar trivia anymore. I get so pissed off when we're out or playing Jeopardy or something like that, right? But like trivia night, there's always that one guy that just ruins it. He goes on his phone and he's like, I got it. I'm like, what fun is that? Let's have debate. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about who won the World Series in '86. Let's talk about who won the Super Bowl, Super Bowl 25. Let's talk about those things. Have conversation and engage one another. But today, we lack patience. We want everything now because we get everything now. Amazon literally shows up at my house 4 times a day. Yeah, I live with a wife and 2 daughters, 2 teenage girls. And I promise you that the Amazon account, I don't have access to it. They don't let me see it, put it that way. But I was backing out of my driveway at 5:30 this morning to drive down here, and I almost hit a guy parked at the top of my driveway because I never look. I always look to the right when I'm backing out of my driveway, never to the left because I don't need to. And as I'm backing out, the Amazon guy at 5:30 in the morning was parked at the top of my driveway. I almost hit him. Scared the shit out of me. I was like, what are you doing here? Oh, I got a package. I'm like, oh my God. So I took the package with me. I didn't let them drop it off. So now if they're looking for it, I have it. They're not getting it back until tonight. But the thing is with that, right, it's like immediacy. Everything is now. The problem is the fire service is not fast. The fire service is not immediate. And these 14-year-old guys over here, you know what? Shame on me. What are your names? I'm sorry. Cole? Kyle? Cole and Kyle. Cole and Kyle don't know any different. They only know what they know. They know that everything happens fast and everything is immediate. I'm starting to feel that way too. But here's the thing. Now we want something to change in the firehouse. Now we want to make a change, or we're going to do something. We're going to implement something different than what we've always done. It doesn't happen overnight, and yet everybody wants it to. Change doesn't happen quickly, and when we have a culture of change happening too quick, you don't get buy-in. You get pushback. The disconnect between young and old. The young kids want to do this. Kyle and Cole want to do this. We're telling them you can't do that. Well, why not? We want to do this now. Let's make this change. Let's put this tool here. Let's change this hose load. I tell this story all the time. Front bumper loads, right? They became very popular over the last 5-10 years, right, on engine companies, right? A lot of engine companies run them for structural, but typically they're trash lines, car fires, things like that, right? But the thing is, there's several different ways to deploy them. And with National Fire Radio, we do a tremendous amount of apparatus content. I work with a lot of different apparatus manufacturers across the country doing media marketing. We have over like 50,000 photos, what we call apparatus innovation stuff, right? So we take content from all over the country, custom fire apparatus, how people build their trucks, and we share the tips, tricks, and hacks on how people are doing it. And we have people reaching out every single day and influencing builds across the country because we're sharing. We're an independent library that shares all this content for free. And we have a beautiful thing coming with all that content, and I could share that later with you. But the point is this. The front bumper line, what kind of load do you want to put in? You have 100 foot, 150, 1 3/4, smoothbore, fog. What are you running? Great. Now let's talk about bumper loads. So here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. You want to come home and you want to implement that change. You go to a conference or you go ride along somewhere else and they have a front bumper line packed and you saw them deploy it time and time again and it works really well. And then you think about your own at home and you're like, man, this one's better than ours. Now you come home excited, ready to go, share this. Cole walks through the door and he says, guys, this whole weekend, man, I was training and this front bumper line, we should pack ours this way. Let's do it. No, there's a process. We can try it. We can put it to the test. We can implement change, but change can't happen overnight because we need to educate our people. See, the problem is, too, in the fire service, is a big disconnect is when only certain people know the changes have happened or you're making change and the others don't. If you're a company or a department and it's something that everybody needs to know, it can't happen overnight. We have to slow it down. But when we live in a world of immediacy, where we don't have patience. We need to instill some. And I think that that's a big part of where we are today. I'm going to double down on that in a little bit, and I'm going to go back to that front bumper story in a minute. Easy is fast, hard is slow. Anything that's worth it takes time to get there. So whatever change you're looking to implement or wherever you want to be or whatever culture you want, it is not going to happen overnight. Hard is slow, but I promise you hard is the most rewarding. What's the rush? It's over before you know it. It's a long term. Learn the job. This is something I talk about. I think it's okay to be a 3-year fireman. I think it's okay to be a 5-year, 10-year, 20-year, 30-year. I think it's okay to be a probie. You look at everybody wants to further their job quicker than they can. It's a long-term play, right? It's a process. I'm going to go into the process in a minute. But it's a long-term play. When you're a 3-year firefighter, you're a 3-year firefighter. Embrace it. Learn. Make mistakes. What are you going to do with your mistakes? Do you make yourself better off of that? The fire service is made up all sorts of types, and I promise you, there can be 3-year firefighters that have a 20-year proficiency level because they're in a very busy department and go to fires and jobs, rinse, wash, repeat all the time. And you could have a 20-year guy in a very slow firehouse that has the same skill set as a 3-year fireman. There's no perfect equation for the fire service. It's what you truly put in, and it's the environment that you ride is what dictates how and who you are. And so you could be 20 years in, but man, you could have a 3-year level of proficiency, and you could be 3 years in and have a 20-year level of proficiency. That's possible. That's possible. All depends on your environment and where you come from. But learn the job. Don't skip steps. Put the time in. I watch so many guys try to rush it. I'm 30 years in. I literally feel like I just joined yesterday. And I'm sure the guys that have 40 years in the back row feel like it has not been a very long run. Unless they've been a chief a while, then they probably feel the longevity of it. But like the fire service is a very good thing. You all chose to be here this morning. Nobody forced you to come here. You all chose to be a part of it. Why not enjoy it? Why not have fun with it? If you're not having fun going to fires and you're not having fun in your firehouse, you're doing it wrong. It's that simple. And trust me, there's plenty of nights I leave my firehouse after a run or I leave after a company meeting and I'm cursing those guys up and down. Happens all the time. But what do you do with that? Is the greater good still good? Ask yourself that. Don't rush the process. We live in an immediate world. I talk about that. We want everything now, and this is a long game. I talked a lot about that. Knowledge and experience matters. I can't say that louder. This job requires experience. We cannot lose sight of that. We need people at all levels that have all levels of experience. But experience absolutely matters. I think we lose sight of that sometimes in life. I think we lose sight of it on the fire ground, the people that we're putting into certain positions, the people that get to make decisions. Experience matters. I can't say it loud enough. Experience matters. We can never replace on-the-job experience for anything else. We can educate ourselves. We can come here, further our education. We can seek external education. Excuse me. We can give ourselves every single tool to get better. You guys are sitting here today listening to me. I hope you have a takeaway from this. It makes you better. So knowledge matters. Experience matters. I can't stress that enough. It is a mixture of the two. It's not one or the other. Positioning, know where you belong like the fire ground. I love the X's and O's. I think it's super important. You got to know where you belong. So on the fire ground, we know, right? Like we have to give our people the tools. If you have riding positions, you know where you need to be. Say you're that OV fireman and your job is 24 to the rear, Halligan hook, right? If that's your job, you know that. Riding in, disembark, grab your equipment, make entry, go to the rear. Whether you have to go through an adjoining, whether you got to pop fences, whether you got to hop a fence, you have to get to your position. The fire service is all about making decisions, taking initiative, and getting in position. It's all that matters in the fire service, right? Do you know where you belong? The roof fireman, typically a more senior guy. Why? Because he's got to know when to make the cut. The OV fireman, typically more of a senior guy. Why? Because he needs to be able to take the initiative to know when to take glass, when not to. These are all things that are super important on the fire ground. Experience and knowledge matter. You have to know where you fit in, but let's take it to the company level. Mickey Farrell, a dear friend of mine. Jeez, sorry guys. Mickey Farrell, dear friend of mine, he's a lieutenant up in New York City. Personal friend of mine, just great guy. He talked about years ago with me on the podcast, very early on, before we became real good friends. He talked about the importance of the kitchen. And he talked about if you're making sausage and peppers and one guy's got the sausage started and one guy's chopping the onions, you don't have to ask, you just step in and what do? You start prepping the peppers. Know where to fit in. It's that simple, right? That comes with being able to listen, watch, understand, take initiative, go do. It's just like the fire service. Do you know where you fit in your company? Do you know where you fit in your department? Do you know how to make things happen? Do you know where you belong? A lot of guys don't. A lot of guys struggle with this. A lot of guys insert themselves in places they don't need to be inserted. A lot of guys clog up the process. We already got people doing these things. Get something else. You get in the mop and somebody's mopping. Somebody's already mopping and nobody broomed yet. Then sweep the floor before he mops. Know where to fit in. Or if the guy's already sweeping the floor, go get the mop. It's those things. Know where to fit in. Your positioning. It's not just the fire ground, but it's in the fire company too. Environment. You guys know who that is? Biff? Yes, thank you. I never know with these groups when I do these presentations. Like I had the Breakfast Club up there and nobody said anything. So I never know, where you guys are coming from or whatever. Biff's an absolute loser. You want to be a loser? You want to run with Biff? I was one of those guys early on. I talked about what a piece of shit I was young, early on. And I was one of those guys that just sat around and, when I said I was at the firehouse all the time and I was 20 years old, going on 45, 50 years old in the fire service, telling the same stories, smoking cigarettes, waiting for that next run. Not really doing much to better myself when I was young like that, not taking extra classes, not pushing myself to meet people, right? I got very comfortable and complacent. What does that do? I became Biff. You're one of the guys, you're a loser. What are you doing to promote your fire company? What are you doing to make yourself better, which in turn makes everybody around you better, which in turn makes your fire company better? Do you want to hang with losers? Fire departments have losers, or at least many do. Do we want those people having a say? Do we want to give those people the latitude to run wild in your firehouse? You want to know why people are leaving? It's because guys like this have a say. You allow them a say. Doesn't work. The thirds. This is fun. I'm going to go down this road for a little bit. I don't know, truth be told, I'm sure I heard this somewhere, and if anybody knows where this comes from, I'd appreciate some feedback. I probably did hear it somewhere and put my own spin to it. I don't read a lot of books other than entrepreneurial and business type stuff. Fire stuff, I listen to training things. I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. The reason why is because I like to be in my own headspace, so I like to form my own opinions, and I feel like, and I'm starting to get better at this, people are telling me I need to start finding others that can help me craft my message better, and so I believe that, and I listen more than ever now, so I'm trying to do better at consuming other people's information. But truthfully, I like just forming my own opinions. This whole program is based on my experience and my beliefs, and so I don't ever want somebody else's book or podcast or information to shape my own opinions. That's just how I am, but I'm changing slowly. But the three thirds, right? Winners, Losers, the middle. Give your winners everything they need to succeed. If you feed your winners and you give your winners the tools to win, the middle will come up. Forget about your losers. That's it. Now, it's hard, right? That's hard because we're all inclusive. We have to allow for everybody that comes through our door, give them a chance. Absolutely. But like you said this morning, out of 160-something, there were a couple kids that couldn't be fixed. They couldn't comply. They couldn't follow discipline. They couldn't fall in line. Losers. They don't belong. See, this is not the library commission. This is not the local recreation department. This is the fire department. And the people that require us to come with unconditional service, trust that we're going to be able to do the job for them and nothing more. We can't have losers in our system. Double down on your winners. You want to know why winners win? Because they're given every single tool to win. Chiefs, commissioners, administrations. Give your winners everything they need to win. The problem is we take our winners for granted. In our firehouses, our winners go through the training props, and then we push them off to the side because we're working with the average and typically spending most time with the losers. The average will come up if you create a winning environment where winners win and they're allowed to win. When we allow winners to win, the average will come up because it's an environment of winning, and the winners will pull the mediocre up. It's when we focus all of our resources and time on those that will never get it, those that will never comply, those that will never buy into the mission of the fire company and what we do with the job. Those, my friends, are the ones that are dragging us down. They are anchors. Double down on your winners. Your fire department has winners. You know who they are. Give them everything they need to succeed. And when we feed the winners and we give the winners the tools they need, the average come up and the losers fade away. Easier said than done. I have problems at home. We all have problems in our firehouse, but double down on the winners. They want more training? Give it to them. They need better equipment? Give it to them. They want a better culture? They want this? They want that? Give it to them. We take the winners for granted. We push them to the side. We don't challenge them because we always think they're going to be there for us. I appreciate Joe and Bob and Frank who are always here working hard. I appreciate them. They show up on every run. They do everything around the firehouse. These guys are squared away. Their stuff's tight. They're winners. But you know what happens when you don't support them? You know what happens when you start shining the light on the losers, on the bottom? Because you're hoping you might be able to take one of them and bring them up to average? Give your winners the tools they need to win. Nobody wants to be on a losing team. Nobody wants to work in a losing fire company. Nobody wants to volunteer with a bunch of losers. If you look around and everybody around you, if you look around and everybody around you is a loser, you might be a loser. Now what? Throw it out there. I was there. I could have went down that road. I chose to turn it around. I took for granted what the fire service taught me. I took for granted the importance of the fire service, the core tenets and values for which we stand for. I took advantage of all of that when I was young. And I promise you this, today, 30 years in the fire service, I'm more in love with it than I ever was before. And when I was 18, 20, 25, and I thought I could conquer the world, and I was a shitty officer and a loudmouth and had every single answer, I promise you I was a mutt. I'm guilty. That slide from the beginning of the presentation. I'm guilty. Today, I work as hard as I can to represent the core values and the best of the fire service. I do this program because it's infectious. I hope that all of you get something out of this today and you go back to your firehouses and you're fired up. I hope you go back and look at the guys that are your winners and you go, hey, bro, you guys need an extra sweatshirt? You need this, you need that. Something to show appreciation for your winners. Give it to them. Give it to them. That goes a very long way. Winners don't need the recognition, but they sure do appreciate it because they know you have their back. Winners. Winners win. Nobody wants to be a loser. I played fire department softball for 20 years. Sunday morning beer league modified. Playing third base. My finger is a half-inch shorter from a grounder that blew my finger apart. I was committed. Every Sunday night, I'd go to bed drunk, and my knee would be wrapped up in my sheets from sliding. You all know what I'm talking about if you played Sunday softball with the firemen. And I finally said to myself, what the hell am I doing? I'm getting older. I'm hurting my body. I'm waking up Monday morning hungover with my knee stuck to the sheets. And we're losing every freaking Sunday. I finally got tired of being a loser. That's it. So I faded out. I let the young kids keep losing. I walked away. Sometimes you got to walk away. Give your winners what they need to win. You'll win. I promise. Be a winner. Create an environment where winners win. Focused and driven. Here's the thing. I know a bunch of fire companies in Delaware. I've got to visit plenty of them. I've got to know a lot of great chiefs, a lot of great fire companies in this great state. There is a culture of firemanship in the places that I've been in Delaware. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. You know what they don't have in their firehouses? Losers. You know why? They're not allowed to succeed there. They get lost in the shuffle. They don't fit in because they're not talking shop, showing shop, carrying their tools, letting their tools do the talking for them. An environment of firemanship doesn't let losers stay. So the losers are the ones that are bouncing around from fire company to fire company trying to find something where they can fit in. I'm looking for subpar. I'm looking for bottom of the barrel. I don't want a lot of expectation. I just want to come and go and do my own thing. I'm not committed. We've all heard this. We've all seen it. But fire companies that excel, fire companies that have a firemanship culture don't have losers. They don't fit in. They get filtered out. You ever see A Few Good Men? Code Red? An environment where they police their own. Now, I'm not saying we're going to beat a guy with, soap and socks and stuff. That's a Code Red. I'm not saying that. We might want to. We can't. My point is this. They filter out their own. If you're a loser and you're sucking off the system and you're in a winning firehouse, those guys aren't going to have lunch with you. You're not going to fit in. You're not going to become part of them. You're not going to fit in on the fire ground. Your tools are going to slow you down. You're going to fumble with your bar. You're not going to get in place. You're not going to stretch the line fast enough and quick enough. And you're certainly not going to go out and work harder. You're not going to go out to the back parking lot and stretch and throw ladders to better your game. You're not going to do it because you're a loser. There's no place for them. And winning fire companies don't allow them. We don't allow them. The average will come up. We have a lot of people in the average. We have a lot of good-hearted, good firemen and firewomen, firefighters. We have plenty of them. We can make them all winners when you have a winning culture. The average will come up. But when your losers are in charge, the average go down. It is much, much easier to be negative than it is to be positive. Being positive takes work. Nobody wants to put in more work than they have to these days. Being a winner takes work. The mission over me, that whole cliche thing, the back of the fire code, fire company, your name's here, the mission here, whatever. I look at it this way, man. The mission absolutely matters, and that's the most important thing. Take yourself out of it. It has nothing to do with you. It has to do with the people we serve. Volunteer career, like I keep saying, it is unconditional. The delivery of services have to be on par with one another, whatever or wherever you fit. Career, volunteer, paid on call. The public doesn't care. There's a level of services that is expected unconditionally by the public, and we cannot falter on that. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. But the mission matters. I always say this. when you're making decisions, if the decision is made for the best of the mission, you'll always make the right decision. It's only when we insert ourselves into the equation can we make the wrong decision. The fire service is built on ego. I get it. I have a massive one. I get it. Can you keep it in check when it needs to be in check? The mission is more important than you. It was here before you. It will be here after you. I know many of us think it won't be, but it will. What are you doing with it while you're here? Are you letting your ego and your feelings get in the way, or are you truly on par for the mission? Me, years ago, it was all about me. Now today I reflect back, and that was just part of my process, but I've made myself a lot better. And in fact, my vision typically is all about the mission as much as it can be. I think that that's important. Super, super important. This drives me nuts. You guys know who that is? Older guys, Nancy Reagan, right? Remember her Just Say No campaign about crack? I think it was in the 80s, Just Say No. Well, we have a culture in the fire service called Just Say No. We have people that are uncomfortable on their own skills and abilities, and when they are, they will never promote you to have an idea or let you do something, anything different than what they want. So what do they tell you? No. No. It's rampant in the fire service. Hey, Cap, do you think we could try? No. Hey, Chief, do you think we could? No. Do you think, what about if we change this and do? No. It's easier to control the conversation when you're saying no. It's when you say yes, you're allowing somebody to have a different perspective and point of view than yours. Are you willing to listen, have patience, and let them try something? We say no all the time. I do it to my kids. I'm 48. My two at home still are going to be 17 and Paige is 18. I tell them no all the time before I even finish listening to them. I'm trying to do better at that. When they come, hey, Dad, do you think I already know where it's going? And I'm like, nope. I'm like, no, I know better. I've been around a lot longer than you have in life. I get it. I know, but it's no. How about I give them the respect they deserve, and I at least let them plead their case? Give them some latitude. Give them some room to speak, and then give them your opinion or decision. We have a culture of no. I challenge you to have a culture of yes. Back to that front bumper. You got a young kid that goes to a conference, they're stretching off the front bumper. He comes back to his home department, and he goes, hey, guys, I got a great idea. Hey, Cap, do you think we could run the front bumper line this way? I was at training all weekend. We were running it. It works really well. I think it's better than our design. And the captain's like, nope. It's been packed like this for 20 years. We're not changing it now. And the conversation's over. What did you just do to that kid? Crushed him. You took away his excitement. Not only that, but you probably shit-talked him for going to training on his own dime for the weekend. So you're like, what are you doing? You're going to train on your own dollar on a weekend you had off? What are you, crazy? And now you come back here and you want to change our bumper load? That is this no culture. You know why? Because that captain's either a piece of shit and he's lazy, or he's scared. I typically, well, they're both even, I guess. But I typically like to think he's scared. Because you got a young, excitable kid who put himself through a conference that weekend to come back with some ideas on how he can make his fire company better. And this guy stops him from at least having some opportunity to do that? How about if the captain said to him, yes, we'll do it after regular training. We can repack it the way you want to see it. Let's try it. If it's better, it's better. If it's not, we're going to go right back to ours. Now, after training, they pack it his way, or they stretch their existing load. Okay, we've done that 1,000 times. Now they stretch it the way the kid wants to. And the first pull, it's good. Second pull doesn't work. Third pull, not so great. Captain can look at him and say, hey, brother, I appreciate you bringing it back. It doesn't fit our trough right, or it just doesn't work for us, so we're probably going to stay with the way we've done it. But I appreciate your excitement in bringing it to us, man. We tried it. I just don't think it's going to work. Or he just bettered your operation. You pack it. You pull it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. You go, holy shit, this is better than the way we've always done it. Now you're winning as a company. It takes safety and security in your officer or your senior man or your command staff or leadership to allow for that conversation to happen. But the problem is we have officers and leaders and people in positions today that say no because it's a threat. They're threatened by something more or different that they're not comfortable with themselves. And when I have come to find out, building 2 businesses now, working with people all over the country, doing national fire radio, and speaking with people and getting to know fire officers in my own fire service career, what I've come to find out is officers particularly that are comfortable in their own skills and abilities will give their people every single tool to succeed, and in fact, they want them to succeed past where they are. I talked about it earlier today. I talked about all the guys that I came up through the volunteer fire service with and all the guys that have gone on the career jobs outside of my firehouse. That to me today, I could wallow and say, oh, I could have done that too, but it didn't happen for me, right? I chose my path. I am super grateful that all those guys have successful careers. They all came from my house, our way of doing things, and we created an environment where they wanted to succeed. They fell in love with the job and they wanted to do it as a career. That to me is a feather in the cap. That's wanting your people to be bigger and better than you are. We need leaders like that. We need leaders that are comfortable in their own skills and abilities, because when you're comfortable in who you are and what you do, you will bring everybody along with you for the ride and promote them to be bigger and better than you. So say yes. If you find yourself saying no and you don't give opportunity, it's because of you. You're not comfortable in your own skills and abilities. You're afraid of change. You don't want anything better than the way it's been or the way it should always be. Provide opportunity. Give our kids opportunity to grow and fall in love with this job. If a kid goes to training and he goes to a conference, if you're not paying for it, shame on you. Secondly, when he comes back, Brian, what'd you learn, bro? Show us. Training night, Wednesday night, I'm going to give it to you. Would you mind showing us some of the things you learned? Build him up. Create an environment where his time away from the fire company and his family and his job to go learn and be better at the craft. Take that. Double down on it. Create a winner. Important. Stop saying no. And be the change. I get this all the time, right? So I put myself out there like this, and I promise you, literally daily, I'll get 1, 2, 3 messages from kids all over the fire department, even older guys too. People all over the country, and they reach out. Hey, Jeremy, appreciate your message, love it, blah, 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 blah. I'm having a real hard time. I'm in a shitty fire company. Nobody wants to do anything. Nobody wants to train. I feel like I'm alone on an island. I'm trying to find similar, like-minded people. You talk about find your crew, find your people. I'm having a hard time finding those people. I'm in a dead-end firehouse. Nobody wants to do anything. Nobody wants to do this. Nobody wants to do that. And I'm on the hook to answer all these kids, and I do. And a lot of my day is phone calls and text messages and emails supporting people that are looking for advice, because people are looking and searching and seeking to be better, and their own fire companies don't want that of them. It's crazy to me. And so a lot of my advice is very much this. It takes time. Don't ever sacrifice your own morals, ethics, or values for anyone else. If the fire company doesn't match your output, doesn't mean that your output's wrong, man. It means your output's 100% right. Keep going. Keep doing. You can be the change. It just doesn't happen overnight. And the problem with this is being the change. I think you can go out back and throw your own 24. And I do believe that you can get 1 or 2 guys to join you. And after 1 and 2 do that, 3 weeks later, 3 and 4 might come out. I think you can make change in your own departments. I also believe there's some companies that cannot be fixed, that are sinking ships. And those are the ones dropping calls every day. Those are the ones that have their heads so buried in the sand or up their own asses that the mission doesn't matter anymore. It's about their own personal agenda. I believe that exists too. But this right here, this is an absolute win. I'll take this kid 100 times out of 100 times. And I'm sure a lot of other fire companies will too. You got your good people, your winners leaving your company, there's a problem. There's a problem. You can be the change, but I want to challenge all of you on this one right here. Do not beat your chest. And I'm going to tell you a story. A friend of mine, Gerard Mann, he's a career fireman down in Australia. I get to see him once a year during FDIC. He's a rock star. Huge guy. He's like this big, massive mustache, tatted up. Guy's a monster. He's got the biggest heart in the world. He's mush. I love this guy. I cry every time I'm with him. Yeah, I cry every once in a while. It's okay, though. Gerard Mann told me a story on the podcast. He talked about his truck company. And in Australia, they don't really do truck companies. Their trucks are truly just like elevated platforms to squirt water from 150 feet in the air. They don't run a truck company, a true truck company like we do here. But he was assigned to the truck, and he had like 3 or 4 guys with him. And it was like one of like maybe 4 trucks in like all of Melbourne or something like that. I'm butchering the story probably. But my point is this. He told me on the podcast, we were talking about it. He said they had this new guy that came to the company, young kid, kid's aces, right? Super good. And he was really into fitness and working out. And so every day they all worked out on shift. But every like couple days, they would take a day or 2 off from working out as a crew and do some other things as a crew. And the kid was getting frustrated with them saying like, you know, we should be working out. And instead, the 3 guys on a 4-person crew, the 3 guys went upstairs to play darts in the firehouse. And the kid was like, you guys are missing it, man. We need to be working out. We need to be, you know, pumping iron, running, aerobics, whatever it is, right? So the kid stayed downstairs and decided to do his own thing. He's beating his chest. Look at me. I'm the example. You guys have it wrong. I'm the example. Look at me. He's done working out. He comes upstairs and he finds the 3 guys playing darts in the firehouse, laughing, having a good time. Gerard pulls the kid aside later on. The kid's like, I don't understand this. He's like, you know, I'm down there working my ass off and you guys are up here laughing, having a good time. He said, yeah, that's the point. That's how we connect as a crew. We do things together. And sometimes darts and playing darts is more important than doing push-ups. The camaraderie, the friendship, the love for one another, learning each other's family, the kids' names, the wives' names, the stories. You find out what's keeping one of the guys up at night. That all comes through maybe in an informal time like playing darts instead of focused on maybe doing push-ups and working out. He said you have to find a fine mixture of it, but you can't walk around this firehouse thinking you're better than everyone else. You can know that inside. You can know that you're surrounded by losers, and you know that you're doubling down and making your work ethic even better than it's ever been, but you don't need to rub it in people's faces. Be a gentleman about it. People will notice. They don't need to be told. You ruin your own mission. You ruin your own work when you have to rub it in everybody's face. So let them see it. It's kind of like the fire ground. Let your tools do the talking, not your mouth. It's important. And that's a lesson that I've had to learn throughout my tenure. Community, I think it's super important. That's what I do with National Fire Radio, building community. I now find myself being like the dumbest guy in the room, and I love it. You know, I talked about years ago, I had all the answers, and I knew everything, and now I just sit at tables with incredible winners. Guys that I read their books and articles growing up are now friends of mine. I get to run in these circles. I get to have dinner with these guys. I get to have daily text messages and phone calls with the biggest names in the fire service, and I am better for it. You know what I don't do? Insert myself into those conversations, those text groups. Only if I'm asked, do I say something? Know your position. Know where you fit in. Know where you belong in the community. When you got people in the room that are bigger and better than you, shut up and listen. And I challenge you this. If you find that you're always the guy talking in the room, if you're always the guy that has all the answers, and nobody else in that room is smarter than you, you think you're the smartest, you're the problem. You're the problem. Surround yourself with winners. The view is so much better, man. I'm telling you, I'm better today than I've ever been before because the people I get to run with and choose to sit with and break bread with make me better. And I recognize that now more than ever. A lot of the fire service today, we talk about opportunities. Kids today have more opportunities than ever before. When we start talking about recruitment, and you look at opportunities, my kids are involved in more activities than I ever was. Like I said, I jumped on my GT Performer, took off for the day. I was gone. Kids today have sports on top of tutoring, and then more sports, or they have this or they have that. Every kid has more opportunities. Human beings, adults, more opportunities. My son, 30 years old, a hobby of his is flipping sneakers. He makes unbelievable money flipping sneakers as a hobby. Why does he want to be a fireman for $65,000 a year when he could do $100,000 a year in flipping Nikes? Opportunity. The fire service has to recognize that we are competing with everything these days. I talked about it before, prioritizing what's important to you. If our firehouses are not a priority because it's not a good place to be or guys don't want to be there, you're going to lose because people have opportunities. We have to create an environment where people are a part of something bigger and better than them. That's what matters. There are plenty of opportunities today for young and old. They don't need the volunteer fire service anymore. They don't need the career fire service anymore. Where the career fire service used to be a solid job with a pension and good medical, they're getting more pushback than ever before. Our personal civil service jobs, our public safety are getting pushed back more than ever before, when in fact we should be doubling and tripling down on them. We're pulling and taking away from them. Why would they want to be a career fireman if we're not providing for them and they can get that somewhere else? We have to look at this and understand that today we have opportunities. I look at recruitment drives and flyers, departments down in South Carolina, down in Texas, places where they're growing quickly. They're popping up new firehouses every single month in these fire districts. Tremendous growth, no tradition, no culture. They're just throwing guys at the problem, but they're bringing in people that are just looking for a job. We want people that want to be there. We want to create tradition and culture. So when you start to see these companies now understand where they say, we can't pay you the most, but we can give you fires, recs, programs, this, that. It's marketing towards firefighters. It's marketing towards the people. When I talked about the younger generations, like millennials on down, it's not so much always about money, it's about experience. My son would rather go away for the weekend and go to a distillery and stay at a swanky hotel with his wife than work overtime somewhere. That's what he'd rather do. It's about the experience. So then why aren't we marketing towards experience? It's not always about pay. In the volunteer service, you start looking at throwing stipends at volunteers. You look at, oh, money will fix it. Money will fix it. No, it will not. Money does not fix the problem. I had this conversation the other day. I was at a department in Jersey, and we were talking about recruitment there. And they're looking at doing like a paid on call. But the money doesn't make sense. I go, it's not going to entice anyone to come here. I'm like, money doesn't fix problems. You have other things here that you want to double down on that get people through the door. Those are the things you need to focus on. So opportunities. We're against the gun, man. I'm telling you, the fire service is in a tough spot trying to get Kyle and Cole in the door. We need 20 more of them coming through the door. How do we get them? We're competing with things more than ever before. Fact versus feelings, other words that matter because words actually do matter. Entitlement, we're all entitled these days. All of us. I don't care who you are, how old you are. We all have a level or sense of entitlement in your life. Unfortunately, poor leadership creates it, and it allows it to thrive. That's fun. So this conversation's been all about young and old and finding communication and understanding that if we tackle the core issues and tenets, we can bring young and old together. That's the disconnect, right? So we need to look at the young and the old. Everybody's got to put the work in. It is not just one generation or the other. And accountability. Stop playing defense. I'm tired of it. Nobody wants to be on a fire ground where we go defensive. Nobody wants to go defensive. Chief, give me 3 more minutes. Chief, give me 30 seconds. Chief, nope, I already gave it to you. I know you guys were going to ask for it. I already gave it to you. Get out of the building. Stop going defensive, and I'm not talking about the fire ground. I'm relating it to that, but I'm just talking about everything else. Stop putting up walls. Stop saying no. Start creating an environment where winners want to win. Accountability. Take accountability of yourself. Take accountability of your culture. Take accountability of your services. If you're dropping calls, if you're not providing service for the public, what are you doing about it? These are real conversations that I have with departments all over the country. And I can go super deep on all this stuff. But you have to take accountability. The only way we win is when you put accountability into the system. If we allow people to get away with things, if we don't hold people accountable, we lose. Accountability is super important. Expectations. Cole and Kyle, 14 years old, they come in the firehouse. Do they know they're supposed to do dishes? Do they know they're supposed to mop the floor? Do you have a playbook for them? Do you have an older guy sitting with them and giving and telling them the expectations? These younger generations want to know. And they want to know when they screw up too. And they don't need to be yelled at because they don't learn that way. What they need is to be told how to correct it. Constructive criticism matters to them. You can change attitudes and behaviors when you hold them accountable and give them a solution to the problem. Are we doing that? I struggle with that all the time. See, we fall down on this all the time. Tyler Whitfield was on my podcast. I was talking to him. He's a younger guy, got hired down in Florida. Never had to make a pot of coffee in his life, never did his own laundry. He lived at home with his mom and dad, got hired at a super young age, went to the firehouse, didn't know how to make a pot of coffee. Nobody told him that was his job. He didn't know how to do his laundry. He didn't know he was supposed to. It's all those things. What are the expectations? It's like teaching the kids lawnmower or starting a saw. We take for granted when kids come into the firehouse, the expectation is known. It is not. We have to work harder today at painting a true expectation of what they're expected to do and perform, and in that way, they can live up to it. If they fall down on this, it's our fault if they were never told. Nostalgia. I talked about this before, right? I mean, come on. How cool is that, right? Like, we all love it, right? And some of us rode that way. I rode the back step for, I think, my first year on a mini pumper, and then we stopped that. The mini pumper only went out for brush fires. So I got to ride the back step a couple times as an 18-year-old kid, but then we stopped. But that picture right there just sums up like the iconic American Fire Service that we all fall in love with every time we see imagery like this. I mean, I do this program all the time, and I see this slide, and it's just, my guys wouldn't even let a dog on a truck anymore. We'd get in trouble. You know what I mean? Like, it's just simple shit like that, right? But this photo to me, smoking a butt, hip boots, no coats, riding backwards on the back step with a dog, probably going to their next fire. This is what we all fell in love with. Could we do that? And I challenge my guys in my firehouse. I go, could you guys work like they worked? Could you go to fire after fire, get your teeth kicked in, and then come back for another, 12 or 14 or 10 or 14? Could you? I don't know. But I'll tell you this, we all love it, but we lack the understanding and patience to appreciate it. The fire service is so very good. We talk a lot about the negative. The negative seems to take over the conversation when we talk about it because it's easier to bitch than it is to fix it. I promise you today, I love the fire service more than I ever have 30 years later. I challenge all of you, if you've lost your way or you just don't love it as much as you used to, it's still there. Go get it. That's on you. Create an environment where Cole and Kyle can have 30 years like I had. You guys are responsible for that. I'm talking to chiefs and officers and training officers in here. You guys set the tempo. You create that culture. Do it. It's on you. And Cole and Kyle are going to have a fantastic career, whether it's all volunteer or they choose to do it as a profession. The beautiful thing about it is this. The negative's easy to talk about. Let's be positive about it. Let's look at the positives. Let's look at what you're doing right and double down on those, and the rest of it can come. So with that, guys, do better. It takes work, all of us, because it matters. Thank you very much for this morning. I appreciate all of you staying and listening. Thank you very much.
National Fire Radio.